Politics now, and court leader Raila Odinga is turning the heat of President Uhuru Kenyatta over his decision to pull Kenyan troops out of South Sudan. Well, Raila says the decision was rushed and would injure Kenya's standing in the region. He spoke as Catholic bishops in the country expressed fear that the move could precipitate a humanitarian crisis along the Kenya border. And as Timothy Otieno reports, the statement came as 100 more soldiers arrived back in the country.
When their boots hit Kenya's ground, what had simply been viewed as an angrily worded statement from President Uhuru Kenyatta quickly turned into reality after up to 100 Kenya Defence Forces soldiers returned home in phase 1 of the exercise. And as the second batch of 100 soldiers touched down in Nairobi, Court leader Raila Odinga turned the heat on the president's move, saying it was ill-advised.
We do not just wake up and say, because our man has now been removed or disciplined, we are withdrawing the entire troops. Those troops were taken to Sudan because there was a need for them.
A damning United Nations report released last week blamed Kenyan troops in South Sudan of abandoning their posts and failing to respond to pleas for help from aid workers under attack in the Terrain Hotel, less than 2 kilometers from a United Nations compound. The report singled out Lieutenant General Johnson Magoa Ondieki, who was ultimately sacked for what the United Nations called, quote-unquote, lack of leadership. The United Nations said that Ondieki's inaction led to the violence experienced in the capital Juba in July that saw dozens of people killed between the 8th and 11th that month. The court leader says Uhuru Kenyatta had alternative ways of resolving the issue that should not have seen troops withdrawn.
Why else did you send the troops there? You can just wake up in the morning and say we're withdrawing them. What we're trying to say is that this act of in terms of anger injures the innocent. It does not advance our interests as a country.
Kenya has been involved in the affairs of its northwestern neighbor since before South Sudan's independence in 2011. Catholic bishops in the country say that Kenya cannot abandon its role in the war-torn nation.
Kenya has to take a traditional role of brokering peace in South Sudan.
But on Friday afternoon, government spokesperson in a statement reaffirmed the country's commitment to withdrawing Kenyan troops from the United Nations mission in South Sudan, stating, quote, "We are firm on this position. This is a matter of honor for our country and its armed forces, whom we feel have not been accorded the respect that is their due." But the opposition leader insists that if there was a cause for concern, withdrawal of troops ought to have been approved by Parliament and not through a government directive.
Parliament was certainly not involved. Unilateral actions by the President are usually the first pointers to intentions to overrun the Constitution. He institutes personal rule and take a country to a dictatorship and a rule by decree. It must not be allowed to happen.
In September, following the threat of an arms embargo, South Sudan agreed to allow 4,000 additional United Nations peacekeepers to enter the country, more than 1,000 of whom came from Kenya. A timeline for Kenya's full withdrawal has not been announced, but the government says it intends to withdraw all its troops as debate ensues on whether the president acted irrationally or not. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.